school, take off my uniform. Lunch was ready. I'd have a date in the afternoon. And everyone was getting very, very jealous and angry. Here's a man who spent the whole 6 months living the life of Riley while we sweated our head off. All of a sudden, nowhere, he says, I don't feel well. We called the medic over. He had 104-degree temperature. She said, you've got to go to the dispensary. They sent him to the dispensary, and the next day, we heard that he died.
Oh my goodness.
Well, how did he die? He had spinal meningitis.
My goodness.
They immediately locked the doors and put signs all over, do not enter. And for 2 weeks, we sweated that barracks without any air conditioning. We couldn't see our wives. We couldn't see our girlfriends. We couldn't see our parents. We all lived in Massachusetts. We hoped we could see them in New York City. For 2 weeks, we were holed up.
So your entire unit is quarantined for 2 weeks.
They were afraid they would spread it.
Wow.
But here's the thing I want to tell you. This Frank Calusi, everyone was angry at Frank Calusi. Even though he died, we were angry at him because we had a sacrifice. I want to take the story back to about a reunion we had about 30 years after we came home. And our company clerk was there, who was very smart. He said, I have to tell you about Frank Calusi. And everybody said, Frank Calusi, that son of a gun, he ruined our lives. He said, no, Frank Calusi, you better say a prayer for Frank Calusi. Because across my desk were orders for you to land on Utah Beach and take the mines off the beaches. Now, my wife and I went back to Utah Beach at the 50th anniversary of D-Day. And on that beach is a battalion with the names. They were eradicated for 100%. That's the unit we would have been.
Yes, he did save your life.
So we say a prayer today. I say a letter to Frank Calusi.
Amen to that. So you didn't know that at the time. So you're done with your training. They sent you to Camp Shanks in New York. Now, how'd you get overseas?
We got on to merchant ships out of New York. Uh-huh. These merchant ships, if you heard about them, they were made in 1 month. It's a wonder they didn't sink, because every time we hit a wave, you heard the creak. We're way down in the hole, and these bunks you heard about them, they were loaded one on top of the other. Those on top were very fortunate, because the people below were vomited on. For 14 days, we were on that boat.
Normally, in those circumstances, the first person that vomits, everybody else does. Yeah. It's contagious. 14 days to cross? I mean, you must have been zigzagging. Did you have destroyer escorts and stuff?
You're absolutely correct. There were times when they would they would shoot shells, what you call depth charges, mm-hmm. and the boat would shake. There were rumors of submarines. We didn't lose any ships, but we were in a convoy. We landed in England. I forget the port that we landed in.
Okay.
But very interesting, as we got off the boat, we weren't assigned to the field, because all the fields were filled up with ammunition and trucks and tanks and all the weaponry. We were assigned to pubs and to houses. I was sent to Wales. We were assigned, my unit was sent to Wales, and there, to my good fortune, I was bunking on the second floor of a pub on straw. But we weren't allowed to sneak downstairs to get any beer.
Officially, you probably weren't, but who knows what the GIs can come up with.
Absolutely.
So how long were you in England, and then when and how did you get to the continent?
Well, I landed in England, so we didn't land on D-Day.
Right.
I landed on the second week of June in Brest or Cherbourg, I can't remember which. And we dug in, and we suffered our first casualties supporting the capture of those two ports. Dead. People from my unit were dead.
That was my next question. So this would have been June
14th, around that
14,
period.
15, and 44.
You're right. And what I have to tell you is that just before this thing happened, something very interesting happened. Just before this happened, we dug into a hedgegrove. You know what a hedgegrove is?
Yes.
Hedgegrove area. And these areas where, as everybody knows, where they kept the cattle or the horses. And there were fields about 100 that looked like a football field. And we dug our foxholes. And the sergeant came up to me and said, "Bornstein, you and Heskett," I'll never forget his name, "I want you to go next to a couple of hedgegrove areas down the road, and they're going to move in a medical unit and see if there's any mines located." And meantime, the war is going on with shells and artillery and sounds of war. But this area is not being shot at. I took my mine detector, along with Heskett, and we went without complaining, and searched this area till late at night to see if there were any mines. When we came back, everybody was gone. Look, they deserted us, but our foxhole was still there, and our A and B bag. For those who remember, the A and B bag was summer and winter. And look, they left us. And we're sitting there shooting the breeze. All of a sudden, it got very dark. And along the edge of the field came a Jeep with the lights dimmed, hugging the side of the hedgerow to make sure they didn't go in the middle. Getting closer, I said, look, they're sending us a Jeep. They're not a truck, but a Jeep. And out jumped an officer. And I looked at this officer. It was my brother.
You're kidding me. Oh, my goodness. Wow.
It's my brother.
Did he know, or this was just pure
No.
happenstance?
It's a good question. He knew because he had all the manifests, since he was supporting a hospital. Of all the units he was supporting, including the combat units, he was in charge of an evacuation hospital.
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, "How did you know I was here?" He said, "Well, I knew that your unit was being moved in here. And I came looking for you. Everyone else was gone. It was dark." And we sat down on that edge of that foxhole, and he proceeded to lecture me about how to be a soldier. He said, "You can be a good soldier, but don't try to be a hero. But I promise you one thing, you know, your mother's all alone, and she worries about you most of all. I'm going to send you to college when this is all through." This brother of mine, this very favorite brother of mine.
What a touching story that is. Oh, my goodness. So you met up with your brother on the hedgerows area of, this is in northern France. So from there, eventually you get to Belgium. So what happens in the next few months?
Let's talk about who I went to Belgium with, a very good commander. That was Patton.
Excellent. Did you meet him personally?
Later on, I'll tell you about it.
Okay.
In a very unusual circumstance. But we were there, Brest, then Cherbourg, and then all of a sudden we heard, I forget the name of the area which they captured a lot of Germans, but they also did a terrible job with the Air Force, with fighter planes along the highways. I remember coming along, seeing rows of burnt German soldiers still trying to steer, but they were all burnt. Dead cows. The smell was atrocious. And I said, how could they win this war? They're being ruined. They're being killed. Shortly thereafter, we got the order to pack up, and we raced across France to Paris, to liberate Paris. Now, I didn't liberate Paris. I wish I could have.
Did you go through Paris?
4 times.
Wow.
Because we told the driver, after we went through, all the girls would climb up and kissing us, giving us wine and roses, and we told the driver to keep going, come. We did it 4 times.
And I didn't bother to tell them you weren't part of the force that liberated
They wanted us to
them.
keep going, but we didn't want to leave Paris.
Very good.
We didn't stay in Paris.
well thought out. Okay, there's still a long distance between Paris and you end up in Belgium. So what's happening?
We landed in an area. Don't forget these open trucks. And we're sitting on back of trucks with cold, driving through the night. We ended up in a place called the Ardennes, which is where the German-Belgian border existed. And a place called St. Vith, V-I-T-H.
St. Vith, yes.
Our job, or our mission, a better word, was to support the 2nd Infantry Division in their fight against the last defense of Germany by German soldiers. The 2nd Infantry Division was a very famous division, Indian Head Division. Fought, landed in Normandy, had a lot of experience, and I'm not so sure it didn't come from Africa. We built roads, maintained roads, repaired bridges. The most important thing was the roads were not like here, but there was a lot of roads that were secondary roads, and they had to be repaired and muddied. They were muddied. At one point we couldn't do anything because the rain and the trucks had demolished the roads, so we started to build a corduroy road. We took over lumber and sewed it down and built it, looked like a cycle, like a roller coaster. And every day we were putting this down. They were fighting up over on the ridge. We were preparing to giving the frontline troops. And then on the 16th of December.
Okay, this is 16 December 1944.
16th December, I'll never forget it. We were ensconced in this woods. We became part of a little village. Everyone built little houses, little huts. I built a hut with a guy. One of my buddies, Hill, I talk about him later on, built a log cabin. We were living, we had 3 meals a day. We'd come home, we'd have a meal. They'd even ask you to come local. They'd be in the camp, they'd show a movie, and every time the movie lights would go on, you'd hear a night climber, a German night climber, and they'd shut the lights. We'd sit there. But it was not so bad. We had food. I bought a little lantern for my tent. I'd read at night. The 16th, so knock on the doors. Everybody out with just your weapons. Leave everything behind. Your wallets, your pictures, identification papers. The Germans are breaking through. Took my rifle. That's all I had was a rifle and some ammunition. And I joined the others as we climbed up a hill to where the road was leading from Germany. You could hear this, there was no sound, it was very quiet. And they were told us to go down this road, and some people would dig in, and the others were given assignment to pull, I forget the term, mines across the road to prevent the tanks. I saw this fellow in a hole who I admired. I'm a pre-FC. His name was Sergeant Hill. I adored this man. He came from Massachusetts. He was a football player. He was a fair sergeant and a good soldier, and very fair. And in the hole was a guy, he had a bazooka with 4 shells in it, his rifle and grenades. The hole was very deep, thank God. And there was another fellow with him, and I said, Jimmy, would you like me to join you? He said, no, I already got this guy. So this other guy says, I'll go. He says, I'll be glad to leave. So he jumped out and I jumped in with Hilly. So I became the assistant to Jimmy. And we're sitting there, and it was not a bad day. The sun was shining. It was cold, but not that cold like it was later on. But you could hear the artillery creeping closer. You could hear the sounds coming from Germany. And we're just shooting the breeze. And Jimmy said, here they come. I said, they're Americans. He said, no, they're not Americans. They're Germans. I said, you're kidding me? He said, well, they're wearing white uniforms. We don't have white uniforms.
You don't have any.
We didn't have anything. We didn't even have winter clothing. He said, get a grenade. Then you could hear the tanks rumbling up the road. And he said to me, get a grenade ready. Now, the grenades are in sheaths, canisters. I took out the back canister, and each grenade had 2 wires, copper wires, one negative and one positive. You separate them both, and you take they were soldered very loosely together.